What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Let's keep the 2025 TCB machine a-rollin'. AI is all over the place these days, and we're going to unpack the is it Skynet or is it going to help question just a little bit. We've got Nada Sanders on the program today. Don't know Nada? We've got your back. What if the future isn't about bits and bytes replacing humans, but about something more revolutionary? Machines and humans merging to create a new kind of business superintelligence. The secret to thriving in the AI era isn't about investing in smart tech. It's about creating what Sanders calls a Humachine, a smarter system of human-machine collaborations. In her book, The Humachine, AI, Human Virtues, and the Superintelligent Enterprise, she provides a roadmap to help business leaders, executives, and managers recognize and unlock the potential of human-machine partnerships. This conversation was a blast, and we did it from the road in Richmond, Virginia. And you know I think you're going to dig it, so buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Nada Sanders on today's TCB.
Welcome to SkyTeam's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday again. It's your favorite day and mine. It is Corporate Bartender Day. It is the 4th of December, 2024, and the 211th time that we've gotten this group of wonderful people together. Today is going to be a good day. We've got a guest. As I want to say, she is the person that you do not recognize in your little Brady Bunch view. Her name is Nada Sanders, and she is a recognized AI thought leader. She's an expert in forecasting and global supply chain intelligence. She's a distinguished professor at Northeastern University in Boston. And according to Stanford, everybody wants to talk to her. She's rated in the top 2% of scientists. She's a sought-after speaker. She's written over 100 scholarly publications and 7 books. I've written 1 book, and that was enough. I don't know how someone musters the gumption to write 7 books, but her most recent book we're going to talk about today, it's called The Humachine, AI, Human Virtues, and the Superintelligent Enterprise. So we're just going to cut right to the chase, and let's give Nada a warm, golf clappy TCB welcome, because I'm on the road. Here we go. Welcome, Nada.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you. Normally, we kick things off with a little bit of an origin story question. So we'd like to hear a little bit about where you come from, because I imagine when you were a child, you did not set out to be an expert in AI and write 7 books and be a professor at Northeastern. Tell us a little bit about what you wanted to be and your journey to getting here to be with us today.
Oh, gosh, thank you for asking. And absolutely. And especially when it comes to supply chain and AI, I mean, we didn't even know what supply chain or AI was back then. And I don't think anybody even thinks, well, that's what I want to do. And even professor isn't really that cool to a kid. But I do come from a family of scientists, doctors, and so everybody's kind of science oriented. And I was good in math, but I was also really good in music. And I liked a lot of things. So I think like a lot of people, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went into engineering as my undergraduate because pretty much everybody in my family was doing that. But then, afterwards I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? I started working. I was doing a co-op while I was an undergraduate. And I just thought, this isn't really what I want to do. And I thought, well, let me find out what this business thing is all about. So I decided to go get an MBA And while I was in the program, somebody said, well, there is this thing, it's called operations and supply chain management, and it's applied mathematics to business. And I thought, oh, I could do that. And so I looked into it, and next thing you knew, I got into it, and it was interesting. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like dream about this stuff at night. I don't wake up and go, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. It's not, but I love what I do. And I do love the people I interact with. I love my students really very much. Every single one, every batch that comes through they're sort of like my kids, and I teach MBAs and undergraduates and all of it. And I do enjoy so many aspects. And one of the really great things that I do love about it is that we get to always ask questions, because I am naturally curious. I always want to know kind of what's going on. So when I was in the program as a doctoral student, I really wasn't even then sure, well, what area within this broad scope do I want to do? And I was getting my doctorate at Ohio State University, and there was a professor who was visiting one semester from Carnegie Mellon, and he was teaching a class on forecasting. So I took it as an elective, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It just blew me away. It blew me away because what I learned is this toolkit of methods to really forecast anything. It's the kind of things that, you can forecast elections, and you could forecast
maybe you can forecast elections. I don't know.
Well, I had comments on that with regard to, so there's obviously Nate Silver, there is Alan Lichtman, who is part of the forecasting community.
Yeah.
He's a professor at American, so he's got his own, and I can even talk a little bit about that, but there's a toolkit, and that's what I decided to do. And it's one of the things so I got into that. And then as for my dissertation, I had the opportunity to begin working with companies to actually apply what I'd learned. And I was still pretty young, and I was in my mid-20s, and my very first opportunity, I went in thinking that I was going to run all the math models that I had learned, and I felt flat on my face. I mean, it was a disaster, because you realize that that's not how companies work.
Yeah.
Companies work off of people and teams, and there's politics and interplay and rumors and all kinds of things that overlay, that you don't just have the model. And the model is one thing, and you could use it, maybe not, or maybe you can to a certain degree. But there's so much more to it. And that took me from that journey to today. And since then, I have honestly worked with hundreds of companies. I've spent so much time and effort learning and bringing this together. And these models were they're basic models. And then we had spreadsheets and da-da-da. Now we're in AI. But models are models, or people. And ultimately, it's their interaction together. And that's really what I do within the business and within the enterprise of their supply chain. So it could be buyers, suppliers, and so forth. What technologies, how do they use them? What do they do? And within that, my area is really, how do they integrate with talent and with people? And I can tell you that I'm not an expert on HR by any means. I don't have a background in HR, but I have over the years really begun to understand the absolutely critical role of talent and the workforce, and how they're indispensable. And the world that we live in today is changing really rapidly with AI and analytics and these solutions. I can say a lot about, but I can tell you today, right now, I know a lot of companies, they want to lay talent off. They want to use the money to acquire technologies. Big mistake, and I can go down that path. But Eric, you tell me. I could talk about the Humachine book first. Whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of things. So for just a primer, right? I mean, we hear a lot about AI everywhere now. And, we hear everything from it's big and scary and it's going to take over the world and it's Skynet. And we hear that, it's going to make everybody's lives easier. And I imagine the truth is probably somewhere in between basic improvements in life and giant threat to all of humanity. Your phrase, the Humachine, is about human machine collaborations. So tell us a little bit about why AI is not the scary thing that's going to end civilization as we know it, and why human machine combinations are going to make it better.
Okay, let me answer the second one first. I'll come back to the first one. So this book, The Humachine, actually just came out in the second edition. We worked on the first edition in 2017, 2018, really just working with the corporate sector, interviewing SVPs, CEOs, tech leaders, across sectors, and then put the book together. The first edition, it came out December 2019. The initial impetus for writing that book was to go into companies and see what is the secret sauce that makes companies use technology and thrive with technology. And you're thinking 2018, the majority of this work was done. And we still had, with the beginning of AI, we had tech analytics.
But this is pre-Chat GPT, right?
It's pre-Chat GPT. So what happened is every company that we went into, and I mean every company, said to, these are leading companies, state of the art, everybody would know these companies, the names. Every company said to us, to our shock, was the secret comes down to talent. It comes down to people. Every company really was surprised. So I just leaned into it. I said, okay, we want to learn, we want to, know more. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Thank you. Thank you. What we were able to see is that the success was not going to come from the technology itself. This is in 2018, 2019, that it was the merging of the two, the talent with what machines could do. And, there's even something called Moravec's paradox. There's a name for it. And it's simply that what machines are good at, humans aren't. We're not. Look, we get tired. We get cold, like today here in Boston. We can only process a limited amount of information. But machines, they're not as creative as we are. They don't have empathy. They don't have care. They can't really, there's a lot of things that they can't do. And I could just, go on and on about that. And that is actually described by something called Moravec's paradox. What we were able to see is that the enterprise of the future, the one that is really going to thrive, is the one that's going to take the best of both. You don't get rid of one, you don't get rid of the other. You basically combine them together. And we actually base that on something called Kasparov's law. And this was based on Gary Kasparov. What he was able to, I don't know if you remember Gary Kasparov, the chess player. He was the one that, he was the first human actually to lose to an algorithm. It was IBM's Deep Blue.
Deep Blue, yeah, I remember that.
And it was it was his first loss ever in chess. And if we can consider chess as some kind of a, surrogate for intelligence or competence, which a lot of people would say it's reasonable. He lost. So he was so upset by it, he ended up holding a few years later, a chess competition. And he put up the greatest computers, the best chess players, and then combinations of computers and chess players. And what came out of this, who won, was actually quite surprising. It was two real amateur chess players and their homegrown algorithm. It wasn't even anything fancy. when he dug into it, he realized what made them superior was the way they were integrated, how they knew how to work with the model really well. In fact, I'll just kind of fast forward, and I will come back to that in a second, but happened to meet Gary Kasparov. He was on our campus here at Northeastern this past summer, and I asked him more about that. And he said to me, he said, that is the thing that is going to be the difference between good companies and great companies. Good companies, they're going to lean into the technology and so forth, make mistakes, but great companies are the ones that are going to know how to integrate their talent with the technology and when the talent will override the algorithms. So just kind of back to what you were asking me, we outlined what this organization would look like, what this enterprise would look like. We called it the Humachine, the combination of human and machine. We completely updated the book post-COVID because the book came out December 2019, then COVID hit. And to our surprise, to my surprise, I did personally all the interviews, recorded them. Guys, I have to tell you, I mean, first edition, we go in to all the companies, they go, the secret is humans, it's talent. It was like, what, really? Okay. This time, it wasn't just talent alone. It was like human skills. Everybody said to me, and I'm talking big names, they said, we're looking for people that can communicate, that can ideate, that can negotiate, that can look you in the eye, that can, resolve interpersonal conflict. It was now no longer about, humans and machines or getting humans in. Now it was human skills on steroids, if I can say that. And that is really what we learned with the first edition and now with the second edition. And I will tell you my opinion. I think there are so many companies today, and I follow in real time. This is ongoing research.
Yeah.
So we wrote the book, but it's not like, I was, done. I keep doing this over and over again, continuing. Even last week, I was meeting with some executives and talking with them and interviewing. And there's so many companies, they still multiple things, but the big one is there's only so much money. Okay. Most companies, that's the reality. We forget, you see all this stuff out there, what AI can do, what Gen AI can do, But we forget what it takes, the amount of money, not to mention there's maintenance. There's all kinds of, hidden fees that go with it. Some companies, I think, are forgetting. They are laying off. I've seen two different cases. I've seen one case where they will lay off senior people and try to cut costs there and then acquire technologies. I've seen another alternative where they will keep a few people that are experienced and not hire incoming young talent, which also creates a problem because you're losing a natural pipeline in order to groom talent and bring them into the fold. Both are a mistake, in my opinion. Again, I'm not an HR expert, but this is what I see. And in order for an organization to make good decisions and to survive and thrive, post-COVID, pre-COVID, during COVID, 2027, guaranteed, you need to have people that know an industry and that have experience. And I think that is, even today now, I think a really big mistake as we see the bright, shiny objects that everybody's trying to chase. And I'm not discounting all the stuff that AI can do, which kind of goes back to your first question in terms of, is it going to be Skynet or is it going to be, I'll tell you one thing that I do know, 100%. Nobody really knows. And right now, there are all these talking heads out there, TEDx talks and on platforms, on stages and conventions and conferences. And I see it. And I just want to say, guys, you really don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. We can speculate. We can assign risks to it, like chances, probabilities. This is actually what I tell a lot of companies now, is to do risk assessments and then scenario planning. Of all the forecasting tools now that we have, remember the toolbox that I mentioned? Well, one of those tools is scenario planning. And I would say that's probably one of the best bets for companies because risks are changing and you have to have good scenario planning that you do with your teams and your people, and you keep doing it and updating. But nobody really knows. One thing we know, look, Gen AI has tremendous capabilities, unbelievable capabilities. But this can go in a lot of different ways, Eric. It can go, so it's incredibly persuasive. And as humans, right, we have a tendency, we believe somebody or something that sounds oh so eloquent and oh so smart, and they know what they're talking about. But the reality of it is these things do hallucinate 100%. It is, they make mistakes. Now, some industries, that's not a big deal. But if you're in the legal profession, if you're in the medical area, there are so many areas. So it's disastrous, or would be. And so are we going to see litigation that could push into regulation? I do think we need some regulation. And I'm not for regulation overall. But if you think about, we have regulation in the airline industry. We have regulation, on our roads. You just can't ride 120 miles an hour. I mean, there's certain laws.
It's not Germany.
Right? I was thinking the same thing. We're not on the Autobahn, right? That's some, I love the free enterprise, and because I think it really spawns innovation and all of it. But you got to have something that is so profound. Again, we have it in medicine. This is moving faster than our regulation and our laws are able to monitor it. I see people that are in HR that are telling me, and my students applying for jobs, well, there are bots applying for jobs. There are bots responding to those applicants. So we don't have any rules. This is very much of a wild west right now.
We were talking in the pre-show. You had a conversation with one of your students about a company that was advertising jobs, but they weren't real jobs.
Yeah, so I actually had quite a few students. What happened is I actually went into class a few weeks ago, and we were going to talk about, and I started asking them about I always do, how are things going? What's happening? Tell me, talk to me, and they started talking about their interviews and they were so just concerned as to what was going on and changing landscape. And I said, okay, we're going to scrap what we were going to do. We're going back to this. This is what, I want us to be able to reconvene if you go back to this dialogue. And a number of them said, there seems to be like a lot of jobs, but they're not real jobs. And then somebody else piped in and said, oh, yeah, I'm having the same experience. And then a third person said, oh, I have a friend over in HR who said they're posting some jobs, but they're jobs that they're really not sure if they're going to come about. So we kind of had this dialogue, like what was going on. And then I happened to actually coincidentally a week later see an article, I believe in The Guardian, I could be wrong, were a very large percentage of jobs, as they were saying, were actually what they called ghost jobs. And so I was like, oh, this is really similar to what my students are talking about. So I read the article, and it was exactly what my students were saying. These were jobs that they could do one of two things. One, they kind of test the market. So it's not a real job, but what it's doing is it's getting a feel. Once they get the applicants, they're going to get a better feel in terms of, who's out there, what are their skills, what's the playing field look like. And the second thing that it does is it tells competitors in the marketplace that they're a player, that things are happening, even if they're not. So I thought that was a really interesting thing.
Yeah. I mean, you do a test the waters job and have a bot do all the replies, and your recruiter gets some free time, right? It's crazy. Lori, you had a question about human skills and AI in companies.
Yeah. So when the second round of interviews for the second edition, where they went deeper into it's not just the people, it's specific human skills, right? That discretionary thinking, the reading a room, right? Those intangible kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I'm curious when they talked about that as a important need, how are they applying the use of AI the most? Like, how are they using AI then? Like, they know that they have to have the humans with the human skills. So where are they actually employing the AI to save time or leave, right, higher order thinking kinds of tasks to people? What is it that they're doing with the AI?
It's a great question because it really depends on the company and the industry sector. So if you're looking at like one of the companies, and I can actually use their name because they've given me permission, a-rollin Candles. I spoke multiple times with their CEO, Rod Harl, who told me that the secret sauce to their success is the various training that they have put into with regard to HR and their talent. And I can go into, deeper with regard to that. But they have a, manufacturing process where they actually produce candles. They produce a variety of different kinds of candles that they sell to outlets like, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, and so forth. And so they use it on the assembly line. You've got various automated processes on the assembly line, but you also have labor and workers that are doing other kinds of tasks on the line. And I couldn't tell you, is it packaging? Is it setting up? Is it, which aspects on the line itself? But you have workers on the line, and then you have everybody from management to various teams to janitorial staff up to the CEO himself. And what they did is, so yes, they're using the technology for certain tasks, but in their case, they've done all kinds of things. They implemented mindfulness twice a week. They made it voluntary, but he was telling me that now everybody goes. They have training on a regular basis for those interpersonal skills. And again, it wasn't something that was going to just be applicable to the management team, but it was to everybody. And one of the things that he even told me, which I thought was interesting, and he was very proud of it, is that one of the people on the assembly line told him how grateful he was, the person, both males, he said that those skills were something that he could transfer over back home. And so last year, Thanksgiving, there was the disgruntled uncle or somebody, the usual, we always have like some family members that might get into some. He said, I was able to take the very skills that I learned at the company in interpersonal communication and apply it to the uncle at the Thanksgiving table. And so, but then I can't, Lori, you're asking me if we look at, it's going to depend if you're, if you're large, if you're a Tesla, and I can say this because I haven't been inside Tesla, but these companies are fully automated. How much would be very hard to say. It really depends on the company. The medical area, certain aspects, especially in the hospital settings, are very automated, and certain things are absolutely not automated at all. And so it really depends in terms of the amount of technology needed for what the company is trying to do. I can tell you this much, though, and I've heard this from a lot of executives, there is pressure from boards to say they're doing something with AI because the competition is doing it. It's in the market. So to say, oh, we're using AI is like we're kind of on the cutting edge. And the thing is that's really kind of kind of silly about it is that I can tell you, I know some big name companies that are using Excel spreadsheets and that are doing a great job with it.
Right.
They're doing a
Like,
great job.
why
Right?
create complexity where no complexity is needed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think that we are in this situation where it's either going to take regulation, it's going to take some really big mistakes. One of the things at minimum that I tell companies, if they're going to say they're doing it, they need to be very clear what the use case is. It's exactly, Lori, what you were asking me. What's your use case? Explain what you need it for, why you need it, and then try to figure out some ways how to measure that ROI. And there are, some of the metrics are going to have to be a little bit different because with AI, it's a little more complicated simply because your returns aren't as obvious as they would be, with a more traditional process of, proving efficiency and things like that. Nevertheless, what you tend to see a lot of times is you see parallel efforts. You don't see a kind of a view of the AI projects together, but rather they're sort of disjointed as one division might be pursuing one thing versus another, or testing or trying. So there isn't this cohesive vision for the company, and it's kind of frustrating because I've been doing this for a long time: operations, supply chain, forecasting, and then all the technology that goes with it, including AI. And I feel like sometimes you're sort of reinventing the wheel with every new technology that we have. And, we're not in high school anymore, people, and, this is not about, a company needs to look at a longer term horizon and stay in business. And what happens is you need talent, you need people, and companies will say it, they give lip service, but I don't think a lot of companies really fully realize how much success really rides on that talent and investing in that talent in so many ways, in reskilling, retraining, various benefits, opportunities, all of it.
So I had an interesting, just happened to be earlier today, I was facilitating a team session using the DISC assessment, the DISC tool of personality preferences. And this was, you guys who know the tool will laugh at this. This was a highly technical team of engineers, and they were all D's and C's.
Really shocking.
C's. Yeah, shocker. 70% C's, right? And like they're
Wow.
very, very bright, very like top tier talent, because we're a very small organization, so we tend to really shoot high. And but this was a fun thing that happened, right? Because the wheels started turning because their little propellers are always turning because they're engineers, right? And so we were talking about the different styles and about how you have to flex into different styles in order to meet people where they are. Well, a lot of these folks sit on standards bodies where they're trying to bring consensus to a lot of disparate inputs and things and get people to create a standard so that there is consistency. And this is in a security privacy space, so pretty high stakes. And we operate a lot by influence versus authority, right? And so the conversation turned to, I wonder if we could feed prompts into, like, I have a pitch that I want to make for bringing people to consensus around an idea that we're bringing forward. But what if I ran it through like a chat GPT to say, write this in the style of a D personality preference, write this in the style of an I personality preference, and how can I modify my C style to be more generically influential in trying to get consensus in a standards body organization? I was like, holy smokes,
I like it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was leveraging the talent to achieve the goals through communication style, where they were going to use AI to coach them, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of that to where again, it's not, we're not going to throw it out or say it's not good by any means. It's fantastic, but you have to know its limitations. You have to know what to ask it, Lori. You have to
Exactly.
know. So a couple of things. There's some studies that have shown that people that have experience, what we call domain knowledge, you know your domain. You're a doctor, if you're in insurance, if you're in banking, you know your area. So people that have that expertise can then use this as a fantastic tool. They know what to ask it, they could query it, they can get answers, then they can go deeper based upon what the response
Right.
is. And then ultimately, though, they are responsible for that output and they know how to vet it and to make sure that it's correct, that there aren't errors and so forth. Young talent doesn't. And this is the part that I already mentioned, but it worries me is this that we have to also give and provide almost like an apprenticeship program where you have a channel where people can go through because young people aren't if they don't have means they're not going to get to that point where they know how to work with the technology and know what is nonsense and what works because a lot of it's nonsense
Right.
but it's buried. So like even like little things like I put in just to mess with it and asked it my name. Because remember also every time you ask it, you're going to get a different output because it's all probabilistic, right? So it's a sequence of words. So I put my name in who's not a Sanders. And so the first few paragraphs are all correct, and you easily can. It's the very things, Eric, that you said, your PhD, Ohio State, that is professor at Northeastern. So you just go, oh, okay, that's good. Number two, that's good. And if you didn't know, then buried way at the bottom, it said she's worked with all these companies. I'm like, yay. And then it says, yeah, and she gave a talk at the United Nations at the very end. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Wasn't me. So, right. So
Yes.
if you didn't know, it's so hidden. So second time I run it, same kind of story, a little bit different, da, 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 da. And then at the very end, it says, she is CEO also of this startup that she started and mentions some name or something or other. Again, it would take
Right.
care to go through. You have to be careful because now this is like paragraph 4 or 5, and you'd have to read everything, be really careful, and you'd have to know your subject matter to know where the flag is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on the volume, I mean, it could really mislead you.
Yeah.
I had it tell me a ChatGPT like model. I can't remember if it was ChatGPT or not. It was an AI model. I had it tell me that 36 was not divisible by 6.
I love it.
I was using it I had a room full of people and I wanted to randomize the names so that I could put them at tables with
Teams of
people that,
6.
in groups
Yeah.
of 6. And
Right.
I have got these 36 names and it said, well, actually, and I'm like, really? Well, actually, 36 is not evenly divisible by 6, to which I replied to it, ERM, it is 6. And it very politely thanked me for correcting its mistake.
Oh,
But I thought that was interesting, right? I didn't have to read down to the 4th paragraph. It got it wrong right out the gate with the simple
Right.
math question. And
Right.
we tend to prop up these models as, if not infallible, largely not so fallible.
Mhm.
And that example proved to me that you never know if and when the errors are going to come, right? They could come in the beginning, they could come in the end,
absolutely.
Yeah.
right?
You don't know. And so, like I was saying earlier, in certain areas, it's going to be fine. If we're chit-chatting here and we make a mistake, we can laugh about it. But if you're in business, if you're in negotiation, if you're in contracting, if you're in medicine or law or anything, you can't afford that. And that means that you're going to have to go through, if you surrender to it and use its output, you're going to have to go through it really, really, really carefully. And ultimately then it's
Is
more
it
work
saving you
unless
time? Yeah.
it's not. So unless you know how to work with it, you have experience, you use it as a tool. And that's really all it is. It's a tool. And I will tell you something else. So remember at the onset, I was saying how, my area is within this domain is forecasting. And there's this toolbox, and there are certain rules that apply to all forecasting models. And you basically have what we call a training data set. You have a set of data that you train the model on. And then you have, then you start making forecasts. And when you do, then you see what the actual numbers come in, what the actual sales might be, and so forth. And then you compare. But you're always running the model on what actually happened.
Right.
You never run the model on its forecast. That's how you get the worst errors possible. Well, one of the things we are seeing now is we are seeing that at least when it comes to the large language models, the ones like the Chat GPTs and the Claudes and the Bards, and they are already running out of things that have been available freely on the internet that they have been trained on. And more of the stuff that's out there freely is slowly, we're just beginning, inching in that direction, but it's beginning to be material that is already AI generated. So now what's happening is you're going to have more and more synthetic data that it's going to work off of as well, and just commingle all of it. And it's the old garbage in, garbage out. And you're just going to have some things are true and some things are not. So it depends what you're using it for and how are you using it. There's companies that are beginning to use what are called small language models. There are their own models that are customized for them. I do know companies that will have a corporate account, like with OpenAI, and depends again what the one company that I spoke with last month is in B2B in digital marketing. So it's a very different kind of thing, and as opposed to manufacturing. And here they do have an account with OpenAI, and they basically have their teams that then use it for brainstorming, and they can query it, but it's ultimately the teams that are making the decisions. But here's the thing, it is a volatile landscape. I will tell you that it is not static, and this is evolving, and how this plays out is really going to be interesting. One of the things that I do tell my students that I am seeing is candidates that are being sought after for jobs. Corporations, companies are looking for people with communication skills. They are looking for some of the skills that some of these skills have atrophied for all of us as we moved into the digital world, and definitely for Gen Zs that are younger, that have, really spent a bulk of the time online. And
Don't even get me started. They can't read. So not I mean, it's such a precipice, right? I mean, there's so much potential and so much possibility, but like any new frontier, it's fraught with peril and challenges, right? I mean, we have to learn how to leverage things in a different way. To your point, we have to re-strengthen muscles that, to use your turn of phrase, atrophied.
Exactly.
And the pandemic didn't help, right? When we got kind of forced into this full digital adoption, and not everybody weathered that storm the same.
No.
Right?
No, they did not.
We could talk about this all day. I mean, I got a lot of things going on in my head. I got recruiter bots and ghost jobs, and I can imagine a world in which, they take a technology like Notebook LM from Google that makes things sound like a 2-person podcast in a really convincing way. I can see that becoming your first pass interview for people. If people want to follow you and just keep their fingers on the pulse of the work that you're doing, where do we find you online? Where do we get your book?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You can go to nadasanders.com or find me on LinkedIn under Nada Sanders. And I will respond. I respond to everybody. And the book's available also on, dare I say, Amazon. So, so nadasanders.com or LinkedIn. And definitely you can find the book on Amazon, or Routledge is the publisher, of course, from them as well. But let me just make sure that I underscore that I think this is the most important time for HR. It is such an important time to make sure that people are getting the skills, the training, the lifelong learning that I think that they're desperately going to need, and really identifying what it really means to be human and thriving in an organization. I think is absolutely essential more than ever.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Let's give her another golfy round of applause. I will be sure to put in applause when I do post. Nada, we end our show with a little ritual that we call Funny Things, Good Feels, and our silly cocktail. It takes about 2 minutes. You're welcome to stick around, but you don't have to. You're under no obligation.
I think I will. Thank you so much.
All right. So getting into our funny things, funny thing number one here. Hold on, I need to get my ducks in a row. Funny thing number one, this is for the aging crowd. And I'm speaking primarily for myself here. This one says, man enjoying gig still wants it to be over. And I don't know about you, but I've found myself at live events as I get older going, this is awesome. And man, it's late. Can we go home yet? This is why the band I play in, we start our gigs at 7:00 at breweries, not at 10:30 like we used to in the old days. And speaking of old man yells at cloud, this kid's vibe has got me going right here.
Oh my God.
Always got his fire up on it. Oh yeah.
That is fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous. Talk about human skills and human needs, right?
Right. I love it.
There he is, taking that virtual fireplace and setting his mood. This one appears to be a real sign. Now I question if everything is AI generated, but hey, this is actually kind of funny. The barber is getting a little too comfortable with his customers. The place is called Haircuts and Chill. This one, I'm going to let you just sing it, and you have to remember the song Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. And this is a LinkedIn profile. It says Nirvana sings LinkedIn names, and the woman's name is Anna Tanis.
Help me out.
Anna Tanis, Anastasia. And my favorite funny thing today, this one's for Ruby. This is a cat one. I left the groceries out for 1 minute so I could pee, and he took a bite out of every single tortilla.
Get off the counter.
Yes.
He bit down through the tortillas, like all the way through the stack of tortillas.
That's amazing.
Hilarious.
That's so cute.
Today, Steve Hartman's going to Steve Hartman you like he does.
We end tonight with a story about the many rewards of kindness and acceptance. Here's CBS's Steve.
In Clemson, South Carolina.
Damn it, Steve Hartman. Every week.
Every time.
Every week you make me cry. Oh, what a beautiful human story and topical for today. Today's semi-quarantine cocktail is in honor of Thanksgiving. I call it the WKRP. It's a riff on a real cocktail called the Jive Turkey. You need a little bit of rye whiskey, one Bush Pilot and Plain in rural Alaska, 1/4 ounce bourbon. There are no roads up where this person flies. A little bit of a morrow. Her name is Esther Keim, and she drops 32 turkeys every year to remote residents. A little bit of driver muth. Her dad started this tradition 25 years ago. Top it off with some elderflower liqueur and Angostura bitters. Important fact here, the turkeys are frozen. They are not live turkeys as referenced on the 70s TV show WKRP, where the station manager said, "As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly." That's today's cocktail. Thanks to Nada Sanders for being here with us today. Thanks to everybody. And enjoy your holidays. We will see you back here in the new year. It'll be 2025, and I'll already be lamenting the coming of Christmas next year in January. Take care, everybody. Have good dinners. We'll see you later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.